Rabotai, welcome back to another class on Dalet Amot Shel Halacha. Ein ala Kadosh Baruch Hu be'olamo ela arba Amot Shel Halacha bilvad. We are continuing in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet in Halacha Vav. This will be part 5 of the Shu'ur. Today we want to do a Biur Halacha and Dibra Matchil Yachol Havdalah b'Shabbat mib be'od yom. Now this is going on the Ramah, where the Ramah says V'im in acherim etzlo, that if he doesn't have other people with him on Motzi Shabbat to be able to do the Havdalah for him, Yachol lahavdil b'Shabbat mi'b'od yom, he's able to do Havdalah during the day of Shabbat, v'lishtot, and he's able to go ahead and drink, u'likabel acher kacha ta'anit alaf, and accept afterwards the ta'anit on himself. What we want to see today, when the Ramah says over here that he's able to do the Havdalah during the day, but the Ramah is not referencing when did this person accept the Ta'anit on himself. Did he accept it on Mincha of Shabbat? Because we know the rule. If it's not a communal Shabbat where it's placed on us, and you want to go ahead and you want to fast yourself, you have to accept the fast the day before during Mincha time, and then you're allowed to fast the following day. Over here, when did this person accept the fast that the Ramah has to go ahead and tell us that he's able to go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day, because he's not going to have any other person to be able to do the Havdalah for him. So this is what we want to see today Be'ezrat Hashem B'lineder in the Biur Halacha. Before we do the Biur Halacha, I just want to do one small line in the Mishnah Chavbet. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I just want to show you something. When are we going to allow you to do this Havdalah during Shabbat? The Mishnah says in Chod Chavbet Me'od Yom, Hainu, which means Acher Plagan Mincha. You are allowed to do the Havdalah during the day after Plagan Mincha of Shabbat. V'itpalel gam ken ma'ariv mikodm. You also have to daven Aravit prior to doing Havdalah. So this is what the Mishnah is telling us over here. That means like this. When the Ramah tells us you have nobody else to be able to do the Havdalah for you on Motzi Shabbat, the Ramah is saying, do it during Shabbat, during the day of Shabbat. When is that during the day of Shabbat? That is specifically after Plaga Mincha and after you have davened Aravit. We want to see today in the Biur Halacha, when does this case apply? Does this case apply even to a person that accepted the fast on Mincha of Shabbat? Or maybe this person already had a minhag. He had a custom that he's fasting every time after Shabbat. So this is what we want to see today in the Biur Halacha. It's a pretty long Biur Halacha, but it's doable, Rabotai. Let's get to work. So in the Dibra Matchil Yachol Havdalah b'Shabbat b'od yom, he says, I'm be Prima Gadim. Look into the Prima Gadim, Shikatav, that he wrote. The Mairi kan shelo kibel alav atanit b'mincha b'Shabbat. That the Ramah is speaking about over here, that the person did not accept upon himself the fast during Mincha of Shabbat. Why? The az Kevin shehivdil, because then, since he did Havdalah, asur lechol, is forbidden for him to eat. Another problem you're going to have, you're not allowed to drink. If you're not allowed to drink, how are you going to go ahead and drink the course Shel Havdalah that you said Havdalah on? Therefore comes the Prima Gadim, and the Prima Gadim is going to tell you that the case of the Ramah, when he's telling you over here, if you don't have other people after Mot Shabbat to be by you, where they can do the Havdalah for you, you are able to do it during Shabbat, during the day of Shabbat. But he says you should know you cannot accept the fast on Mincha of Shabbat. In order to use the halach of the Ramah, you're not allowed to accept the fast on Mincha of Shabbat. Ela rather, so when did he accept the fast if it's not on Mincha of Shabbat? Ela kibel kvar alav sheitane gimel yamim miyom rishon. Ayin Sham says, look over there. Rather, he says that the case that the Ramah is speaking about is a person that he already accepted upon himself that he's always going to fast from day one, meaning from Motzi Shabbat he's going to fast 3 days. That means to say, according to what the Pri Megadim is, the way the Pri Megadim wants to understand the Ramah is, he's explaining like this, that this person had a custom that every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, he fasts. And we know Sunday is part of Saturday night. So therefore, once Shabbat comes out, he has this custom already. So once he has this custom, that's the halacha that the Ramah is going to tell you to go use to such a person. If this person right now, on Motzei Shabbat, he finds himself in upstate somewhere where he has no Jewish person that's going to be able to do Havdalah, the Ramah is going to tell him, go ahead, do the Havdalah yourself during the day, after Plaka Mincha, after you're done with Arabit, drink the cup, and afterwards, Shabbat is out, go ahead and accept the fast on yourself. This is the way the Pri Megadim wants to understand the Ramah. Comes to Halacha and he says, where did the Pri Megadim get this notion that the Halacha is speaking about that? The Halacha doesn't say anything. All the Halacha says that if you don't have anybody else that's going to be able to do Havdalah for you, you're allowed to go ahead and do the Havdalah yourself during the day of Shabbat and drink and then accept Shabbat and then accept the fast on yourself after Shabbat. But where does it say that the Ramah is speaking about that the person had a minhag? How do you know? Maybe the Allah is speaking about where the person accepted the fast on himself during mincha of Shabbat. Where did the Pri Megadim get this notion that it cannot be speaking about the case where he accepted it during the mincha of Shabbat? So the Biur Halacha says, "V'diyek ze mimagen Avraham mima shekatav." He made this inference from the words of the Magen Avraham from what he wrote. What did the Magen Avraham write? It is speaking about a person who made a vow to fast every single time the first 3 days after Shabbat, etc. Now, before we continue, just want to explain something. Comes the Biur Halacha is saying like this. If you look into the Shulchan Aruch in the Magen Avraham itself, the way the Pri Megadim understands the Magen Avraham, he's saying like this. When the Ramah says somebody's going to fast 3 days and 3 nights, the Pri Megadim understands the Magen Avraham thinking that when the Magen Avraham is saying that somebody made a vow 3 days to fast straight after Mot Shabbat, the Pri Megadim is understanding the Magen Avraham that it's going back on the Ramah. One more time. Don't lose me, Rabotai. I know it's too many names, but it's fine. We have the Pri Megadim. 1 second. Let me just see something. 1 second. Let me see if I can do it. 1 second, Rabbi side. Okay. Okay, Rabbi, so let's do this. Let's try to see. Hopefully you guys can see it. We have over here like this. Let me see from the other side. Okay, good. So we have over here like this. We have the Pri Megadim, we have the Magen Avraham, and we have the Ramah. The Pri Megadim understood when the Magen Avraham said that a person vowed, he understood that the Magen Avraham is saying this case of the vow business is going back on the Ramah. When the Ramah says in the Shulchan Aruch, the Magen Avraham wants to explain that case is speaking about a person made a vow. Sometime in the past he made a vow that he's going to fast 3 days straight after Shabbat every single time. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So since the Magen Avraham uses that terminology that the person had to make a neder prior to the fasting, comes out over here, comes to Pri Megadim, and he has to say like this. Must be that if a person makes a tanai, if he makes a stipulation on mincha of Shabbat that he's going to fast after Shabbat, must be that's not allowed. This is the way the Pri Megadim wants to understand from the words of Magen Avraham, who interpreted the Ramah that way. Yes, Rabotai, I hope I did not lose you. It's a beautiful halacha, it's a little bit learning, but try to be on board. Okay. So let's do this one more time, Rabotai. Let's go back from the beginning, and we'll just see it go in sync. I'm a Pri Megadim Shekatav, look into the Pri Megadim that he wrote. It is speaking about over here that he did not accept upon himself the fast on Mincha of Shabbat. Because once he's going to do the Havdalah, he can't eat. If he can't eat, he can't drink. So why are you doing Havdalah? Ela, rather you have to say the Pri Megadim is saying, Ela kibel kvar alav shitanikim leimim biyom rishon ein sham. Rather you have to say that the case that the Ramah is speaking about is about a person that already accepted upon himself to fast every single time, 3-day fast after Shabbat. Look over there. Where did the Pri Megadim get this notion? Magen Avraham. He made this inference from the words of the Magen Avraham, from what the Magen Avraham wrote. It is speaking about that the person made a vow to fast 3-day fast after after Shabbat. Comes the Pri Megadim and he's understanding right now that when the Magen Avraham is saying that the person made a vow, he's understanding that the Magen Avraham's words are going back on the Ramah, the way the Ramah wants to explain it. That's why it comes to Biur Halacha and he says like this. According to my humble understanding, it seems that Magen Avraham ain't kavanato lozeh. The Magen Avraham's kavanah, the intention was not going back on the Ramah. Rak listor divrei ha'ol Shabbat. It was rather coming to contradict the words of the Ol Shabbat. Shehivin b'divrei halavush, that he understood the words of the Lavush. Shelo haya kodem Havdalah Kabbalah klal. That before Havdalah there was no Kabbalah, there was no acceptance of the fast at all. That's why the Magen Avraham wrote on him on the Ol Shabbat. Lo yadati my kamar. He says, I don't understand. What is he saying? Ayin Sham, look over there. Before we continue, needs a little bit of explanation. Initially we understood okay, Rabotai, I hope you guys can see this. Now it comes out like this, Rabotai. Initially we understood that the Pri Megadim understood from the words of the Magen Avraham that the Magen Avraham wanted to interpret the Ramah, that when the Ramah says 3 days, you have to fast. If a person is going to fast 3 days and 3 nights, the Magen Avraham understood the halacha of the Ramah, that he made a vow in this situation. That's why if you don't have anybody with you, you are allowed to go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day. This is the way the Pri Megadim understood the Magen Avraham, thinking that Magen Avraham halacha is going on the Ramah. Now that's a problem, Rabotai, because if you do think like that, comes out the Pri Megadim is right. Why did the Magen Avraham have to point out to me that the Ramah situation of a 3-day fast is speaking about when he made a vow? Must be that if he would do it on Mincha of Shabbat, it would be asur for you to do Havdalah during the day of Shabbat. Because then you can eat or drink. Because by doing Havdalah, you accept upon yourself the fast. So that's why it comes to Biur Halacha and he says like this. He says, in my humble opinion, in my humble understanding, aniyut means poor. Dati means knowledge. So basically it's a very humble way of saying, in my humble opinion. Comes the Biur Halacha and he says like this. He says, I think the Pri Megadim misunderstood what the Magen Avraham was saying. The Pri Megadim understood the Magen Avraham was going on the Ramah. He says, no. The Pri Megadim should have known that the Magen Avraham was not going on the Ramah. The Ramah was never speaking about a case, a vow, so therefore you're allowed to go ahead and tell me, on Mincha Shabbat, you're not allowed to accept upon yourself the fast. That's not what he was saying. The Magen Avraham was going to contradict the words of the Olad Shabbat, where he understood from the Levush that you don't have to do any Kabbalah at all before Havdalah. And still you're allowed to go ahead and fast after Shabbat is out. So that's why it comes to Biur Halacha and he says, Prima Gadim, the Magen Avraham was going really on the Olad Shabbat. Don't say that he didn't do no Havdalah at all. Of course he did Havdalah. He had a vow. He made a neder prior to this that he's not allowed to go ahead and eat 3 days after Shabbat. So this is what he says about. That's why he said one more time. In my humble opinion, it seems the Magen Avraham in Kavanot, the Magen Avraham, his intention is not to go ahead and try to understand or explain the Ramah. Rak l'stor divrei ha'olad Shabbat, but rather to go ahead and contradicts the words of the Olad Shabbat. Shehivin, because the Olad Shabbat understood b'divrei ha'levush, in the words of the Levush, shelo haya kodem Havdalah Kabbalah klal. He understood from the words of the Levush that there was no Kabbalah, there was no acceptance of a fast at all before Havdalah. That's why he wants to go ahead and he wants to contradict and he wants to say, no, there was a acceptance. It was a vow that the guy took upon himself to fast a 3-day fast after Shabbat is out. That's why V'alkein, and therefore Katav Alav, he wrote on him, the Magen Avraham wrote on the Olad Shabbat, Lo yadati my ka'amar an sham. I don't know what he's saying, look over there. Now comes the Biur Halacha and he wants to explain how could it be. I don't know if you guys know who the Prima Gadim is, Rabotai, Prima Gadim. If you ever get stuck in the Magen Avraham Taz on the Shulchan Aruch, you go to the Prima Gadim, he explains. It's Rabotai, Prima Gadim makes it easier. He simplifies the Achronim. So he has to understand how can he make such a mistake. So really we're going to say it's not a mistake. The Biur Halacha is going to say he did not have the Sefer of the Olad Shabbat. So he didn't, that's why he wouldn't be able to say or think that the Magen Avraham's words were going on the Olad Shabbat. That's why he thought that Magen Avraham's words were going on the Ramah, because he didn't have the book of Olad Shabbat. Let's see this. Vasibal is it. The reason to this, why the Prima Gadim made that inference from the Magen Avraham, that you cannot go ahead and accept upon yourself the fast on Mincha Shabbat, he says, Shelo haya lifnei Prima Gadim Sefer HaOlad Shabbat. Because before the Prima Gadim, he did not have the book Olad Shabbat. Kasher katav batno, like the Prima Gadim himself wrote. Shelo hisigo rak b'siman shin yutet v'al'ah. He was not able to reach the Sefer from Siman shin yutet and on. Up to Siman shin yutet, he had the information of the Olad Shabbat. But from then and on, he didn't have it. So therefore the Prima Gadim would never know that the Magen Avraham was coming to contradict the words of the Olad Shabbat, and he thought it's actually going on the Ramah. If it's going on the Ramah, so if it's a case where he had a custom from before, that means on Mincha Shabbat, you're not allowed to go ahead and accept upon yourself the fast. This is how the Prima Gadim understood the case. Continues the Biur Halacha and he says, Aval Lidina, Rabotai, Halacha. This is a Halacha class, no? Biur Halachas are very, very beautiful. Very beautiful. You see what the Mishnah Berurah does, Rabotai, see what the Chafetz Chaim did. It's not only Lashon Hara, even that is a monumental work that he did. But this, Rabotai, only if you guys get an opportunity one time, Rabotai, take it, Talmud Chacham, a rabbi, tell him, Rabbi, I want to learn any halacha. Just ask him. Any halacha. The Tur, the Bash, the Beit Chadash, the Darkei Moshe, Pri Shadish, Drisha, then go to the Shulchan Aruch itself, the Nosei Kelim, the Pitchit Yeshua, and then you see the halacha. Just tell him, Rabotai, he'll tell you, have a nice day. If he's a real Talmud Chacham, he'll tell you, sit down, we're learning. But we'll learn from the beginning to the end, because that's how you have to learn. But this is what the Mishnah Berurah did. He took everything and he condensed it so beautiful. Thank you, Hashem, for such a beautiful savor that the Mishnah Berurah produced, the Chafetz Chaim produced. Okay. Aval Ledina, however, halachically speaking, ein nafkamina bezeh shekibel alav b'mincha. Halachically speaking, there is no practical difference if a person went ahead and he accepted upon himself Shabbat, if he accepted upon himself the fast on mincha of Shabbat. The Bureau Halacha is going to tell us halachically, we'll see, that if a person accepted upon himself the fast on mincha of Shabbat, like we explained, after Pagat Mincha, after he davened, he went ahead and he accepted upon himself, I'm sorry, one second. One more, reverse, retract, rewind. The Bureau Halacha is going to tell us that, practically speaking, halachically, if a person went ahead and accepted upon himself the fast on mincha of Shabbat, and then he went and he davened Aravit, and then he's even allowed to go ahead and do the Havdalah and drink the wine, it's not a problem. Only after one Shabbat comes out, then the fast begins, like the Ramah said. So that's what we're going to see over here right now. Aval Ledina, however, halachically speaking, in nafkamina bezeh, there is no practical difference in this, shekibel alav b'mincha. That if a person went ahead and he accepted upon himself to fast, after Shabbat on mincha b'Shabbat, it doesn't make a practical difference in halacha. V'lo dami l'tisha b'av v'yom kippurim, and it's not comparable to the 9th of Av and Yom Kippur. I will explain. Shisham hu tanit chova be'etzim, because over there it's a fast. The fast is an obligation in itself. That's why it is stringent why you're not allowed to go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day. Because it's considered to be that you accept upon yourself the fast, and it's going to be forbidden for you to drink afterwards. That's why you have to go ahead and do it Moti Tisha B'Av or Moti Yom Kippur. You're like, Rabbi, I have no idea what is flying. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Very simple. What is the Biur Halacha telling us now? The Biur Halacha is coming and he's saying like this. What ends up happening if Tisha B'Av falls out on Moti Shabbat? Or Yom Kippur fell out on Moti Shabbat? When do we do Havdalah? Rabbota, again, today is Shabbat, tonight Shabbat comes out and Tisha B'Av comes in. Or Yom Kippur comes in. Saturday night is Tisha B'Av and Saturday night is Yom Kippur. When do you do Havdalah for Shabbat? What are you going to answer me? You do it after when Tisha B'Av is out, after when Yom Kippur is out, correct? Correct. 1 second, why? Why don't we go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day of Shabbat, just like over here? Just like the Ramah is saying over here. You could go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day of Shabbat, drink the wine, and then once Shabbat comes out, you're going to go ahead and keep Tisha B'Av or Yom Kippur. So comes the Biur Halacha and he says, I'll tell you something. Don't try to compare a voluntary fast versus an obligatory fast. You can't compare the two. An obligatory fast has much more stringencies. That if you went ahead and you would have done Havdalah during the day of Shabbat before sunset, you are no longer allowed to go ahead and drink that cup of wine. Why? Because by doing Havdalah, you're accepting upon yourself the fast. Because you're saying the day of Shabbat is over and the new day begins. So therefore you have to fast. That you cannot do by an obligatory fast. But by a voluntary fast, by an optional fast, over there we're going to give it to you. Listen, it's not an obligatory, it's not so strict. You wanted to fast, go ahead fast. So that's why he wants to say, don't try to compare an optional fast to an obligatory fast. They're not comparable. An optional fast will give you to go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day if there's nobody else that's going to be able to do it for you. But by an obligatory fast, we're going to tell you to wait until after Tisha B'Av came out or after Yom Kippur came out. Now you guys can understand that if on Shabbat, right after Shabbat, if it's Tisha B'Av or Yom Kippur, now we know why you're not allowed to do Havdalah during the day of Shabbat and why you have to push it off until after the Tisha B'Av is out or Yom Kippur is out. Okay, so let's just see that one more time. Let's say that one more time. V'lo dami l'Tisha B'Av v'Yom Kippur. It is not comparable to Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. Don't tell me, oh, look at Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. You can't do the Havdalah during the day of Shabbat. So to maybe you cannot do the Havdalah. Don't do that. Why? Because over there is an obligatory fast. It's an obligation on each individual to go ahead and fast. It's not that you're saying, I want to accept the fast. It's put on you. You want, you don't want, you have to fast. That's why it's stringent that you're not able to go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day. Because it's going to be considered that you already accepted upon yourself the fast. And then it's going to be asur for you to drink afterwards. That's why, Rabotai, when Mochi Shabbat is Tisha B'Av or Mochi Shabbat is Yom Kippur, you're not allowed to do Havdalah on Shabbat day itself, and you have to wait until after Mochi Yom Kippur or Mochi Tisha B'Av. This is the first part. From here we see that if a person went ahead and he accepted upon himself a fast, to fast, Saturday night, he accepted that fast on Mincha of Shabbat, we see from over here that he's allowed to go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day, drink the wine, and then after once Shabbat is out, he accepts upon himself the fast in his mind, he has to be ready for it, and then he's able to go ahead and fast 2 days, 3 days, 1 day, whatever he accepted upon himself. Now the Mishnah Berurah wants to go like this. Listen, when you're speaking about the Pri Megadim, the Pri Megadim was not a small person, but he was humongous. Maybe the Pri Megadim is right. I mean, you can't say that he made that mistake, correct? Let's go the other way. Maybe he's right. You want to say maybe he learned the Magen Abraham's words that's going on the Ramah. I'm sorry, the other way around. We wanted to initially say that the reason why the Pri Megadim could have made I don't want to say mistake, but the reason why the Pri Megadim made that inference is because he understood that the Magen Abraham's words were going on the Ramah, because he didn't have the book of Olot Shabbat. But really the Magen Abraham's words is going on the Olot Shabbat. So that's why the Pri Megadim's notion, the statement that he said regarding making a stipulation on Mincha Shabbat, maybe it doesn't apply. Maybe the Ramah speak about whether you had a custom, whether you made a vow, or whether you made the stipulation to fast on Mincha of Shabbat for after Shabbat. It makes no difference maybe now, because the Magen Avraham is really going on the Olot Shabbat and not on the Ramah. Comes a Biur al-Chana, is going to say we might have a problem. What happens if the Pri Megadim is right? You looked at one side, but let's go to the other side. What happens if the Pri Megadim really, in this world, he understood that the Magen Avraham had to be going on the Ramah? So when the Ramah says, when the Ramah said that one was going to fast 3 days and 3 nights, and the Magen Avraham explains it to me that a person took a vow, he took a neder to go ahead and fast 3-day fast after Shabbat. So if that's the case that the Ramah is speaking about, like the Magen Avraham wants to explain him in the world of the Pri Megadim, comes out that if a person makes a stipulation, if he accepts upon himself the fast on Mincha of Shabbat, he can't do Havdalah during the day. So this halacha is not going to be practical from the Ramah. So let's see this inside down. Va'afila im nomar, even if you're going to say shekavanat Magen Avraham lidiyuk kasher katav Pri Megadim, even if you're going to say that the intention of the Magen Avraham is exactly like the inference that the Pri Megadim made, like the Pri Megadim wrote, meaning maybe the Pri Megadim really understood the Magen Avraham the right way, that the Magen Avraham was trying to tell us how the Ramah was talking about, like on which case the Ramah is talking about. So if that's the case, you have a problem on people accepting the fast on Mincha of Shabbat. Mikol makom lidino. He says, nevertheless, halachically, nireh, it seems, the ein lehachmir bazeh. Still, he says, it seems to me, do not be stringent in this. Meaning that if a person went ahead and accepted the fast on himself on Mincha of Shabbat, he says, don't be stringent that if you're not going to have anybody there to do the Havdalah, go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day of Shabbat, after Plag Mincha and after you down Arvit, do the Havdalah during the course of Havdalah, and then after Shabbat, except continue fasting. He says why? Why don't you have to be stringent in this? Even if a person went ahead and he accepted upon himself the fast on Mincha of Shabbat. Ki matzati behedya be'el Yerabba, because I found openly in the El Yerabba, the Mairi Khan that is speaking about over here in the case of the Ramah, the El Yerabba wants to say, Shekvar kibel alav atanit b'mincha. He already accepted upon himself the fast over here on Mincha. The El Yerabba wants to learn the case of the Ramah, is going mamish and the case that we've been discussing. That if a person went ahead and he already accepted upon himself the fast on Mincha of Shabbat, that's the case where the Ramah is going to tell you that if you have nobody, now you're allowed to go ahead and do the Havdalah on Shabbat. And even so, in such a case, he's allowed to go ahead and drink from the kos Shel Havdalah, because it's still for sure day. These are the words of the El Yerabba. And I also saw this written in the Ma'amar Mordechai. Also, it says openly there that if a person went ahead and he accepted upon himself the fast for after Shabbat on Mincha of Shabbat, he's allowed to go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day and drink the kos of Havdalah again. That's being nobody is being there around him where they're going to be able to fulfill his obligation. Kasher atik lashon lekam. Like I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy his language later on. Bottom line, Rabotai, we see over here. We wanted to know, we began the class. When the Ramah says over here that if a person doesn't have nobody with him after Shabbat, that they're going to be able to do the Havdalah to take out their obligation. The Ramah said he's able to go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day, drink the cup, and then accept upon himself the fast. Came the Pri Megadim saying it had to be speaking about the case where he had a custom. Where did the Pri Megadim get it? From the words of the Magen Avraham. Why did he understand it like that from the words of the Magen Avraham? Because he learned that the Magen Avraham was explaining the Ramah. Came to Bir Halacha and he says, no, you can't make that inference. If you're going to make that inference, it comes out that if a person went ahead and he accepted Shabbat, not Shabbat, if he went ahead and he accepted the fast on Mincha of Shabbat, it's going to come out that he cannot do Havdalah during the day. Comes the Bir Halacha, therefore, and he says that the Magen Avraham's words had to be going on the Oled Shabbat, where he wanted to contradict what the Oled Shabbat had said. But it was not going back on the Ramah. If it's not going back on the Ramah, the Pri Megadim's reasoning doesn't stand. Therefore, the Bir Halacha said that if a person accepted upon himself the fast on Mincha of Shabbat, and there's nobody else that's going to be able to do Havdalah for him after Shabbat, he's allowed to go ahead and do the Havdalah on the day of Shabbat itself, after Plag Mincha, after he davened Aravit, do the Havdalah, drink the kos Shel Havdalah, and after Shabbat, accept the fast. That was one part. Continued the Bir Halacha and he said, even if you want to say the Pri Megadim is right, that maybe really the Magen Avraham was explaining the words of the Ramah, even if you want to say that, so it comes out that a person who accepts upon himself the fast on Mincha of Shabbat, he cannot do Havdalah during Shabbat. Because by you doing Havdalah, you lose the ability to be able to drink from the cup of wine. Came to Bir Halacha and said, even if you want to say that reasoning, no problem. Still, he says, I found it written openly in the El Yerabba and the Ma'amar Mordechai, where they both said that if a person already accepted upon himself the fast on Mincha of Shabbat, and there's nobody else to do the Havdalah for him, he is allowed to go ahead and do the Havdalah during the day, again, after Plag Mincha, after he davened Aravit, let him do Havdalah, let him drink the kos Shel Havdalah, and then after Shabbat is out, he's able to go ahead and continue the fasting that he accepted upon himself from then and on. Rabotai, we're going to conclude over here. Be'ezrat Hashem b'leneder, we have also Sikat Chavbet. I didn't do the whole thing. We have another Bir Halacha, but this is very important. You see, Rabotai, how important it is to learn Torah in depth, to get a very good understanding of what the halach is going on, and now you know the sides. Rabotai, this is what we call Amelis B'Torah. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen ve'Amen.